Hey, Foot Clan, today's episode is brought to you by NFL Game Pass. Every throw, every catch, every fourth and inches. Let's say you want to hop in the bubble bath and watch every one of those Kareem Hunt runs. Ooh, you can do it. With NFL Game Pass, they've got you covered for all of this year's action. You got the game replays, condensed games, the all-22 coaches film. You can find out the truth from the lies. So if it's NFL football and it happened, NFL Game Pass has got it. Kick off the 2017 season right with NFL Game Pass. Sign up at NFL.com/fantasyfootballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Redraft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, come aboard! Choo-choo! Welcome, one and all. I know it's been a bumpy flight.
We made it,
but we made it. I'm going to stick with that analogy here because the whole offseason, you've been packing your bags. You headed to the airport. You got yourself your window seat. You strapped in. And for some of you, now some of you had Kareem Hunt, and the takeoff was beautiful. But for others,
the Kareem Hunt owners, you're at the hotel. Your shoes are off. You've already made.
You've landed.
You've made balls with your feet on the rug.
You have finished your room service. It's outside your door.
But for many of you,
you've missed your Uber.
Many of you, there is some turbulence that took place on the ascension, on the takeoff, and we're going to do our best to be the Xanax for your flight right now. Try to bring some sanity and some stress relief to what's going on. It has been an incredible, team-altering at times, crazy week one.
It really has. It's so funny to look at Twitter, and you have so many people incredibly happy, and they're like, I can't, this is the best I've ever started. And then you have the other people that deal with, that's the thing in fantasy.
It's fantasy football.
Half of you are going to win this week, and half of you are going to lose.
Yeah,
the math adds up.
It's going to be 50-50. Now, I'm going to start off because I was hoping that we could get this stat, and Jason looked it up beforehand, because I think we all recognize, look, especially halfway through the morning, you were looking at your matchups, and you were looking at these games, and you saw just no points scored. I mean, big-time players, Lev Bell, just low-scoring games. Jason, illustrate for the people exactly what we saw, the difference between this year and last year.
Yeah, I was really curious. So I just, looked up how many passing touchdowns were, week one last year versus this year. Now, we still have 2 games to go tonight, and there was the canceled game because of the hurricane. So last year, you had 48 passing touchdowns week one. This year, 29. And then rushing touchdowns, you had 25 last year to 15 this year. That's the difference. I mean,
that's
you're talking
30
about
less.
Huge. Yes, 73 versus 44 touchdowns offensive. I mean, this year, week one, was an epic poop in their big boy pants. I think like week one is now personified with pants on and needs a diaper.
And out of those 44 touchdowns, I believe 22 were the Chiefs on Thursday night.
Yes.
And so
Kareem Hunt did everything he could.
You're right. You posted on Twitter. You said, look, if everybody poops in their big boy pants, does anybody poop in their big boy pants?
Oh, if you got them on your roster, you know they did.
So we're going to go – look, that's what today's show is. It's the rewind. We're going to go through the stud muffins, the duds. We're going to try to sort out which breakout players to buy into, which breakout players to ignore every week.
Which busts to target.
Oh, yeah. And look, let's start it off. That's the quick question. By the way, you can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Follow us all year long. We're a 5-day-a-week show. If you're joining us for the first time, keep it right here all season long.
I was going to say hello if you're just joining us for the first time.
Hello, greetings. I'm just simply trying to survive the potential tilt that a David Johnson injury will bring you. And I'm going to illustrate my situation because it's going to mirror a lot of yours, and we'll decide. These guys will tell me what to do because I don't know what to do. All right, quick question of the day. How you doing, Brooks?
I'm great.
All right.
That's not the question of the day. All right, which week one bust are you trying to trade for right now? Which week one bust are you looking to make a move on in week two?
I'm going to start right at the top. The tip top, I'm going to go the tippy top. You got to go make a move for Lev Bell because half of the owners out there will go, no, I'm not trading Lev Bell. He just had a bad week. But the other half of the owners are full tilting, and they're worried that something bad has happened and Lev Bell's not going to be Lev Bell, and that's just how the fantasy football goes.
Our listeners are not tilted.
Yes, do not tilt. Do not trade away Lev Bell right now because you're going to be getting the least that you can get.
It's lunacy to trade.
Would you make?
I would
the
trade.
Move.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, you're going to say Kareem Hunt for Lev Bell.
Give
me Lev Bell 100%.
Just verifying.
Yeah, don't be crazy.
Now, could that work out to be bad? We don't know the future, sure, but you have to go based on history and logic. And logic and history say
take the Xanax.
Yeah.
Right.
And Lev Bell. I'm going to say let's make a move on any of the elite tight end options that poop the bed, which is every elite tight end option. Rob Gronkowski, Jordan Reed, Greg Olsen, Travis Kelce, Tyler Eifert, Jimmy Graham.
How dare you leave my guy out? Zach Ertz is an elite tight end.
But he
not
didn't poop his pants.
I know. He said every elite tight end pooped his pants.
He was not drafted to be an elite tight end.
He should have.
We all agree he is one, and he was my start of the week. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But look, the big situation here I would look at is somebody like Charles Clay. Now, Zach Ertz's elite week one wasn't touchdown dependent. I love Charles Clay, and if you got him late, you don't need to feel the need to trade him. But he's not scoring 16 touchdowns. He's not going to score a touchdown every week, and this offense played the Jets. So if I could move Charles Clay in a piece to get one of the 6 elite tight ends that pooped the bed this week,
yeah, absolutely,
I'd be all over that.
All right, the guy that I am targeting, we have a conflict of interest here. That's the wrong phrase.
That's the wrong phrase. It's a disagreement.
Conflict of opinion.
I almost went with this guy, so I can tell you I'm on your side, Mike.
I'm targeting Dez Bryant, and I know the final stat line was rough for Dez Bryant. You look at the amount of points you got, and you're like, this is absolute trash. He was targeted 4 times. 4 times in the end zone. And I'm talking one of them was a slant route, and he was wide open.
Wide open, just overthrown.
Dak sailed it. If you watch the beginning of that, or if you watch the whole game, Dak was a little shaky to start the game.
The first quarter, he was overthrowing everything. He was nervous.
Yes, and then the nerves settled down, and we saw, Dak Prescott is still a very good quarterback. And he just missed Dez Bryant late in the game on a bomb touchdown. The thing that I liked about it was, I believe it was 1st and goal on the 5. Granted, remember, Ezekiel Elliott got to play this week. They went 3 straight passes, and 2 of those targets were to Dez Bryant. My point is just they're going to be far more willing this year to hyper-target or aggressively target Dez Bryant, especially in the end zone, and not just say, okay, we got a rookie quarterback, everything has to run through the running game. So I think that Dez Bryant is a great person to target.
The nice thing about targeting Dez is he should be super cheap, because going into the year he was falling in drafts, people worried about matchups, things like that, and now you have him completely lay an egg.
And I'm going to jump in because you guys are on that side of the pendulum. I'm weary. I'm not sure. I've been the one that said, look, the rapport between – you can't just infuse the rapport of Romo, Dez, super years to Dak Prescott. If you target him now, you're going to be disappointed again next week. He plays Denver. So you're going to listen to this and go get him, and he's going to struggle again. And he has tough matchups all year long. So if the price is right, I get it. He's a superior athlete. The target's in the end zone. You got to love him. Nobody thinks that – I mean, we disagree on the show all the time, but that doesn't mean I think Jordan Matthews can't catch the ball ever or Jeremy Maclin can't catch the ball ever. It's a matter of the longevity of the season, and I am still unsure of Dez as a top 10 wide receiver.
And that's fine. The thing last year, Dez still had tough matchups, but he was dominant. When he was held down was Janoris Jenkins and the New York Giants, and yes, stat line, he was held down, but play-wise, he was open. It was just a couple of barely just missed passes that, I mean, Dez, you're talking, if the ball is just placed slightly better, he would have had a monster game. And it's the opportunity. Opportunity combined with an elite wide receiver.
What was his total targets in the game? Do you have that number?
I can pull that up.
Was it 10 or more?
I do agree with
I don't
Andy
think it was
that
10
it's
or
going to
more.
be a rough week 2.
Yeah,
but that's where it's just a matter of the price.
Well,
If
week
you can
3
get
is
him-
Arizona and Patrick Peterson,
If you
and this
can-
is the story that's going to keep happening.
9 targets.
I think if you get him cheap enough, it's worth having. I mean, you're telling me you wouldn't want even against Denver that you wouldn't want Dez as like a flex type option. I think you can get him on the super cheap.
Well, but the price may go down in the next 2 weeks. Don't you agree with
it
that?
Could. It could.
All right, 9 targets, you said?
Yes.
All right, let's get into the news.
Weekly Rewind.
All right, we're going to walk through some of the injury news. I do want to remind you that you can find our fantasy football community at jointhefoot.com. There are thousands of listeners of this show willing to basically help you out with those start-sit questions, talk about trades, talk about waivers, DFS. The whole community is over there at jointhefoot.com. We'd love to have you aboard. Lots of perks, benefits, extra show every week. Allen Robinson's done for the year, torn ACL.
Oh, man.
That stinks.
Yeah, Allen Robinson.
Who steps into a relevant fantasy role? Because right now I looked based on that week like Allen Hurns is the guy that, he outproduced Marquise Lee significantly, but
I believe it's Dante Fowler.
the defensive end.
Yes. Yes. He is he's the one who steps up.
I have no doubt that if Bortles could throw it to a defensive player, he would prefer it.
Oh, he does.
The defense looked fantastic, but I mean, I'm not.
You mean my almost upset of the week?
Right. Well, I mean, you're technically wrong because you called almost.
Yeah, that's the gag, Mike.
I don't. If I'm putting my chips on anyone, it would be Hurns.
Yeah, I would lean that way as well just because of the touchdown upside,
Yeah.
body type, history of having done it before. I wouldn't spend much for him on Fab,
no.
but I would be willing to grab him because, look, someone's going to be the #1 wide receiver
The thing
for an
is
NFL team.
Hearns is not going to move back outside, right? He's going to stay in the slot where they have him, so it'd be Lee or Hearns.
Do you lean Lee?
I lean the cheapest I could get on Fab of those two just to see what happens. So whoever's $1. That's the amount I'm spending for the replacement for Allen Robinson. All right, guys. David Johnson.
People were saying that I jinxed him with my
With your throat swallow?
with my
No,
throat
that
swallow.
would have been
Yeah.
me trading my entire
life
for this player in
Yeah,
our
when the Fantasy Reaper trades for you, watch out.
Look, he's made of he's a mutant. We've talked about that on the show before. Sprained wrist, X-rays negative, MRI today. I wish I had more news. I really do.
I will be surprised if it doesn't break sometime while we're recording this.
The news, not his wrist, right?
Yes, the news. Come on, man. In the meantime, just so you know, the reports have ranged anywhere from he's not going to miss any time to he's going to miss a couple weeks or half the season or longer.
Yeah. Thanks,
So-
Chris Mortensen.
Anywhere from
Thanks, Mort Report.
from 1 to, let's say, 15 more games.
Yeah.
Nice.
And if I have to weigh in.
Zero. Actually, no, it's from 0. He'll miss 0 to 15.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
If I
didn't-
have to
leave
weigh
that.
in, I would guess he misses this week, and he's back.
At least?
And back.
Okay.
Yep. But it's good that X-rays were negative, but otherwise it was not good. If you were a David Johnson or a Lev Bell owner, you were disappointed in week 1. Danny Woodhead left with a hamstring injury, made an incredible one-handed catch. Looked like he was going to be
dominating.
heavily targeted, and now the fear is that Danny Woodhead may miss significant time with a hamstring injury. Very disappointing. This is the risk of Danny Woodhead.
It's the same hamstring that limited him in camp. So when you re-aggravate a hamstring injury, you
Yeah,
have to then give it rest. There's nothing that can fix the solution other than waiting until even longer than, like, your hamstring is going to feel fine. Don't get back on the field. So I would say, he's going to miss a long period of time, more than a month, which we'll talk about in our Rising Stars, who to maybe pick up.
I've got a sound effect to summarize the entire career of a certain player.
Uh-oh. Oh, man.
That's sad.
Kevin
It
White.
genuinely is sad, and I'm not – I mean, that was to be funny, but Kevin White seems cursed in the NFL.
Yeah, his body has betrayed him,
Broken collarbone, season-ending surgery.
which is strange because a collarbone is not usually a season-ending situation. I mean, it's just the bone has to heal, but if he actually has to have a surgery on it, I mean, that's
Done deal.
insane.
Does another team give him a shot at year 4? I mean, I'm just saying, like, you still have never seen him on the field. It's crazy.
I don't know.
doubt it.
I don't know.
I doubt it.
So does that give you more confidence in somebody else on that wide receiver core? I mean, this is like
the last of the Mohicans is Kendall Wright. I mean,
the last.
I'm just saying the last man standing. There's just nobody left.
Bellamy.
Yeah, Bellamy might be
maybe the tight ends get more targets.
Maybe.
Until Zach Miller goes down.
It's not like White's ever had a target share that mattered. All right, C.J. Fedorowicz suffered a concussion. Tom Savage was benched in favor of Deshaun Watson. Watson set to start week 2.
And it's the right move. But Bill O'Brien, this guy and his polling of quarterbacks is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is the exact same thing happened last year.
With Mallett?
And you can go back 2 years ago to Brian. It's just with Brian Hoyer. I mean, make up your mind, man. You have to.
You spend all of camp saying this is for sure the guy, and then one half comes
and pumping him up, and you're like, okay, he had a bad half. Well, you're not the quarterback anymore.
I think what it says is he can't make the correct decision in camp.
That's a fair point, but you have to stay the course to see if someone can do it, because maybe it was just a really, really bad half for Tom Savage. I mean, Deshaun Watson is the correct choice.
They had to take Tom Savage to the sideline on a cart. That is how immobile he is.
No.
So you saw the offense actually move when Watson came in. This is good news for DeAndre Hopkins.
Lamar Miller.
Great
if you ask me
for
for a target,
Miller.
I actually want to go after DeAndre Hopkins. His talent is so superior to the majority of NFL wide receivers. He just needs a shot. This game went as bad as it could possibly go for Houston. He still had a fantasy relevant game
because he scored.
Yeah,
I think a bust.
What was his
with
total?
Watson.
What was his total stat line?
Off the top of my head,
if you look at what Hopkins and what Lamar Miller had done in the majority of the game when Watson or when Savage played, it was nothing. And then Watson comes in, and all of a sudden they're moving the ball.
7 for 55 and a touchdown. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, but 7 for 55 would be
on a nightmare game
PPR.
Against a really good defense.
Sure. I think with the quick question of which bust is worth going after.
Yeah, he's not a bust.
No, I'm talking Lamar Miller. With it looked terrible, but as soon as Watson came in, Miller started getting chunk plays because they could do the read option. And
I think he had about 96 combined yards through the air and ground. I mean,
man, I feel like we could talk for hours about all these situations, but I'm going to finish the news out here before we get into the stud muffins. Ezekiel Elliott, the NFL has appealed Zeke's injunction.
The appeal of the appeal.
Look, if the NFL wins the appeal, then the injunction is thrown out, and Ezekiel Elliott has to immediately start serving a suspension. Climb on the roller coaster.
Yep.
Close your eyes, put your hands in the air, and just see what happens.
And Jordan Reed, the news came out, which is so bizarre. I mean, we knew Jordan Reed was dealing with a toe injury. And then they decided to drop on us right before NFL game action. Oh, Jordan Reed's dealing with a fractured big toe. Well, thanks. Thanks for that update. It's ridiculous, but he looked okay.
Does that news change your opinion of Jordan Reed and his situation? If you thought it was just orthotics,
he still looked okay. The thing is just
5 for 36
over time, because you know that they're juicing up that toe, so he can't feel a thing. Over time, does it start to take its toll on Jordan Reed?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, I'm just saying from history, It's like he is not one to deal well with injuries and to recover quickly, so I think you have to watch out for that. Hopefully Odell Beckham Jr. can recover quickly. It seems like the Giants desperately need him.
I was going to say, if I'm Beckham, I'm not recovered until that contract comes in. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty important to this team.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
All
right. Well, before we get into the Stud Muffin section, I want to thank today's sponsor, ZipRecruiter. If you are out there in a job where you are in charge of hiring, you should use ZipRecruiter to find your candidates. It's different than just where you put a job post up and then you have to deal with 8 billion different emails and sort through things. ZipRecruiter, it posts your job to hundreds of different sites with one click. Their technology matches the right people for your job. 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within just 24 hours. So find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, our listeners, they can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That is right, completely free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/footballers. That's ZipRecruiter.com/footballers. One more time, to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/footballers. You will not be disappointed.
We want to thank Pristine Auction for sponsoring the show. PRISTINE auction.com. You know what that spells? Delicious, delicious sports memorabilia.
That's not accurate.
It is
Totally
very accurate.
accurate.
And here's what happens when I talk about Pristine Auction. I jump on there, I check out the dailies, and I throw some bids out.
Did you put a bid in on something? You're about to?
Bid? No. Multiple bids? Yes, because they always have new stuff every single day. You never worry about the signature being authentic because they use the best authenticators in the business. And I am telling you, Foot Clan, if you haven't checked it out, make a completely free account. Let them know that the footballer sent you and just browse. Have a little peek ski because the stuff is incredible. This is what you want on the walls. Whenever you flip on our YouTube and you see a signed jersey like Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley's on the wall right now, a signed jersey. We got him on the cheap because we use pristineauction.com. So please go check him out. You will not regret it. That's PRISTINE auction.com. And making the account, like I said, completely free.
All right, we're going to get into the stud muffins. I want to catch people up, though, because they were following along with our we had 2 play draft drafts against each other.
Those didn't work out well
Now,
for
so
me.
Here's the deal. I know the lay. I'll give you the lay of the land.
Well, we never made a confirmation about this. Are we going total points of the 2, or are there two losers?
There's 2 losers.
There's 2 losers, which are both going to be me.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Here's the situation. In one of ours, it's over. Jason lost far and away because he had Lev Bell, and he had Greg Olsen and Russell Wilson. And so Mike and I, Jason he has to eat something terrible that we picked for him. I'm eating healthy food and whatever I want. In the second one, I'm safe.
Yes.
You two are fighting
It's very
tonight.
close.
And in the second one, it's Michael Thomas versus Melvin Gordon tonight. And essentially,
I think I'm behind, though. I have to make up ground.
Mike is down 8 points. And Mike has Michael Thomas, and Jason has Melvin Gordon. So there's a chance Mike has to eat something terrible this week too. So
I can get behind this.
that's just a summary of
Can
that
I use
situation.
my first place to wipe out the
we'll,
bet?
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
All right, let's start at the quarterback position. We didn't give him his due on Thursday.
That's true.
That's my mistake. Alex Smith was an absolute stud muffin, 368-4, 28 for 35 against the Patriots, who have a couple of great corners. I mean, Butler, Gilmore, and Alex Smith's next 3 matchups: Philadelphia, the Chargers, and Washington. Does Alex Smith do you ride the 46-point fantasy day? If you were somebody that had, I don't know, Dalton, Palmer, do you start looking at Alex Smith for next week against Philadelphia?
Quite possibly.
And Darby's out.
Quite possibly. I have not dove into who I want to stream.
Yeah.
Besides, you target whoever's playing the Colts, but that's Palmer, and we already had this conversation in the studio. Like, do you play Palmer? So Alex Smith moving forward. This is why he is the perfect streaming option, because he's available and he can have huge games.
He can have huge games. I agree. But that doesn't mean that he will continue.
Yes.
If you look at last year, we're so, quick to forget. Last year, week 1, Alex Smith was the 3rd best quarterback and had an unbelievable first week, and then, tailored off the face of the map, and you didn't really care about
He did
using
what?
him. I don't know.
Taylor?
He tapered.
Did he make a suit?
So I'm
He
not
made a suit,
trusting.
and he got out of town.
I am not trusting Alex Smith as some great
Sure,
option.
sure.
He
No,
is
that's-
still a streamable option.
That's an important warning. Unexpected. Matthew Stafford against the Arizona secondary lit it up. The second half was welcome to the Lions game plan. Look atrocious for the first half of a game. Come back in the fourth quarter. 8 of their last 9 wins have been fourth quarter comebacks, and Matthew Stafford took care of business on the back of some smooth
Oh, man,
routes.
those routes.
Well, I'm going to hold off on the drop
Okay,
until we get to
all
wide
right.
receivers. Other quarterbacks that had good week ones.
Hey, and
two start of the weeks.
I have to apologize for my Jake breaks on Matthew Stafford. Now, that being said, doesn't he play
the Giants next week?
Ooh.
Yeah, I know it's one of those things where do you start him? I mean, he is startable, but I don't think you.
I think you've got other
options.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz, Tyrod Taylor, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, they all got it done. Big Ben eventually got it done. That game was strange.
Kaiser.
Yeah, so let's talk about Kaiser because he had a fantasy relevant day despite the loss. And
I would say
he ran the ball and he ran a touchdown in.
The thing about Kaiser was for his total fantasy production, this has a lot to do with other quarterbacks of note being awful, right? I mean, he should be bumped down from Brady, from Wilson, from Aaron Rodgers, but they all had really rough games. Kaiser, he is a streamable guy, but if he continues to hold the ball like he did in week 1, I mean, he was playing college football against pro athletes, and that's going to lead to injury. So hopefully he can speed up his clock a little bit.
And I would just throw out the one guy that impressed me the most where I think, hey, this could be an upgrade was Carson Wentz.
Certainly.
Carson Wentz looked very good. And he's got the weapons now that he didn't have. He's going into that sophomore year. Now he faces a tough Kansas City defense. However, they lost
Eric Berry.
Marcus Peters is fine. Is that correct? Or I know at the end of the game he was a little bit hurt. So we'll have to check into that as we do our week 2 matchups. But he's someone I'm definitely keeping an eye on.
If you're new to the show, today's not the only episode of the week. Just so if there's something you don't hear about,
we'll
realize
cover waivers, streaming options.
Tomorrow's
matchups.
waiver day. We got streaming. Yeah, exactly. More starts of the week. We're going to talk about it all. Let's shift to the running backs. Now, last week we got on to talk about Kareem Hunt on the Thursday show because Kareem Hunt went ham. And look, I've heard every attempt at a nickname for him, and we were talking about this before the show.
Oh, come on.
They were going, everything from look, cookies and Kareem Crispy Kareem and
Peaches and Kareem.
Yeah, and Kareem the Dream and Kareem the Dreamsicle, and we got on the show.
A lot of nicknames with pants.
Mike's like, hey, look, let's go ahead and jump into that old Jolene classic, right? He said,
we're doing this.
Yeah, we're doing this. And so he said, the old Dolly Parton song,
Kareem. But we're not going to finish it.
And
right
so
here.
we did that. We did that on the show, and it just didn't sound right. And so I came in here on Saturday, and I was like, you know what? I'm just curious what went wrong. So here's Mike and I, and we took care of it.
Kareem.
You two gentlemen sounded fantastic there.
Took care of it is a bit of a stretch.
Okay. So, but let's relative to. I decided to isolate Jason's vocals because I wanted to know what went wrong, and here's what went wrong.
Kareem. You're welcome. I was not a musical theater major. It is true.
So Kareem. All right, sorry, Jay.
No problem.
Had to enjoy that.
Welcome to Lay Down for the Buses.
Yeah, look, let's move on from Hunt and Gillislee. We know we talked about them.
But actually, just before we move on, has it ever happened that the top 2 fantasy running backs of a week were both on Thursday night?
Still might not happen.
I don't know.
Okay, fair. We have 2 more games to go, but as of right now, Kareem Hunt and Mike Gillis were the top 2 running backs.
Well, let's talk about the next runner-up, the guy that impressed the heck out of. I was so.
You all right there?
Yeah, I was so expecting a bad game from Leonard Fournette.
Yes, you were.
Yeah,
and I'm all about Leonard Fournette. I mean, I said early season he was my rising star. How he looked in preseason, he's a generational talent. I am fully in support of him. He was the guy I said that after what I expected to be a poor week 1, go get him because I think he's going to be great. He was great in week 1 against the top defense, and now gets some juicy matchups. And my only other worry was the foot and the workload, and those things are out the window because they gave him the ball every time that they snapped it.
Here's the deal. I'm not a fan of trading when a player is high. It's going to get higher. Go get him. I offered everything I could this morning to get Leonard Fournette. The workload was tremendous. 26 for 100 and a touchdown, 3 for 24 out of the backfield. Yeldon was inactive. Ivory spelled Fournette. This team is being run exactly as we all thought. This is Tom Coughlin, defense and running the football. Doug Marrone, take the ball out of Bortles' hands. Don't put so much dependency. And now you have no Allen Robinson. You didn't draft Fournette at number 4 to give him the ball 5 times a game. He may lead the league in touches. This may be like Ezekiel Elliott last year, where they follow that recipe. So love Fournette. LaShawn McCoy, he did exactly what he always does.
Yeah, talk about leading the league in touches. Shady McCoy is going to get the ball a lot. He's sensational. Now, once again, we saw the backup come in and steal his touchdown, Mike Tolbert, but they got to the 1, and Shady had to run off the field, as he is known to do, and was dealing with I don't even know what had happened to him. Something happened, but Tolbert came in and stole the touchdown. But it looked like it was supposed to go to Shady. So don't freak out yet about the touchdown.
Tomorrow's the waiver show, but are you targeting Tolbert?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look, running backs are important, obviously. Mike Tolbert got as many carries as Devonta Freeman did. He got a touchdown, and he's in a role where
they were playing the Jets.
Sure.
Yeah,
no,
that's
just pointing out.
That's a pretty hot stat, though. As many carries as Devonta Freeman?
Yeah, I will vet that right now, but no. I'm just.
It's so hot that it might be a lie.
No. I'm going to tell you.
Confirm that for us?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we'll get back to that.
Yes,
right.
Mike Tolbert had 12 carries.
Yeah.
Devonta Freeman had 12 carries. DeMarco Murray had 12 carries. So
weird week.
More stud muffins.
All right.
Ty Montgomery, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Tariq Cohen. I'm going to talk about Montgomery, and we're going to talk about Montgomery and Cohen in a minute. So press the pause button on those. No need to talk twice about them. We got the Raising Cane's Rising Stars coming up. So I want to talk about Gurley because I've been the biggest Gurley supporter. And I want
your take.
I want to be very clear here. Everything in this game was conducive for Todd Gurley to run all over the Colts. The fantasy stat line you're happy about, but you need to be worried because he was 2.1 a carry, inefficient, with an offensive line that protected Jared Goff, and he made all of his fantasy money, so to speak, in the passing game. And so I think you need to be cautious about Todd Gurley. Like I said, this game was made to be Todd Gurley's best case scenario.
Had 200 yards. I mean,
he should have.
And so there was still some things there that made you say, where's the – if you're going to get the efficiency back, it didn't happen in this game. So be careful.
Well, and there was plenty of times watching it, and Jason and I were watching the game, and I mean the volume was there, the fantasy numbers were there, but I told Jason, I'm like, Gurley's does not look impressive right now. There were several times
exactly like he did last year
where a defender is kind of wrapping him up, and you're like, a good strong running back breaks that tackle.
Couple leg tackles that he could have taken another 10 yards. This is not to say you need to go unload Todd Gurley. This is what we said would happen. The workload was so high, and the passing game utilization is what makes him relevant. But don't give him a crown, right? Don't put a crown on his head and say he's a top 5 guy because of this 20 fantasy points.
He's still got a couple good weeks ahead of him. Washington, San Francisco as his next 2 matchups. So you might be able to sell him even higher once he puts a couple back-to-back games.
Because I personally would like to trade him off of this game, but he does have some more good matchups that I think he'll have some solid fantasy days. All right, I'm going to move on to wide receivers. We'll talk about some of the other players that did well in the context of some of the pooped in their big boy pants later too. Wide receiver, we know Tyreek Hill had a great game.
Yep. Let's talk about now we can talk about it.
Oh man,
so smooth.
The smoothest,
the smooth routes of Kenny G.
So smooth.
Sometimes things happen for this show that are just so smooth.
So smooth.
Kenny G. Kenny Galladay.
I'm letting this run through.
Oh man, you
4 for 69 and 2 touchdowns. Torched Justin Bethel in the Cardinals secondary. 7 targets, 4 catches. has the Giants, Atlanta, and Minnesota coming up. He'll be a hot name on the waiver wire.
Don't overpay for him.
That's my advice as well.
Yeah, he's a great player, and I think that he is going to be a fantastic wide receiver in the years to come. But
I'd rather spend my fab on Corey Davis.
For sure.
Yeah, I think I would too.
All right. Antonio Brown, he did his thing. He's really good.
Go figure.
11 for 182. Ridiculous catches.
Now there's a shocking name about if you have if you're eating like some snacks or whatever.
You're on the plane still.
Just hold on, clear your palate, make sure there's no beverages in your mouth. Okay, go ahead.
That's a barrel roll. Here's a barrel roll for the plane. Nelson Aguilar, 6 for 86 and a touchdown. We knew he'd have the opportunity, right? Jordan Matthews out the door. Nelson Aguilar is supposed to slide into that slot. He had one monstrous play, obviously.
On a very broken play.
Yeah, where Carson Wentz really evaded the defense. I'm not overpaying for Nelson Aguilar.
No.
There are ignorables every week, and I'm not necessarily saying Aguilar is that, but he might be. He might be somebody you just need to just throw that stat line up. Jeffrey didn't have that big of a game.
Well, Jeffrey, because of the matchup, Jeffrey had a really good cover corner on him. This next week, though, you've got Marcus Peters. So it could be another good Nelson Aguilar week.
Yeah, worth a note. Jordy Nelson against Seattle, 7 for 79 and a touchdown on 8 targets. DeAndre Hopkins, we talked about him having a pretty good game. But Golden Tate.
Yeah, that's the big one
10
for
for
me.
107. The Cardinals, once David Johnson went out of this game, it's almost like the defense was like, well, that's it. Let's forget it. I mean, they were leading this game. They could have taken control of this game in the first half. Detroit looked like they didn't know what they were doing.
Well,
and then Matthew Stafford said, hey, get on my back.
Yeah, he said, let's throw the ball to Golden Tate.
I want to hear about Cooper Kupp, guys. 4 for 76 and a touchdown. I'll be the first to admit, somebody hit me up on Twitter Sunday morning. They said, look, is Cooper Kupp a sneaky play today? And I said, I don't want that sneaky play. I said week 1, Cooper Kupp week 1, he needs to get in the end zone to be relevant.
Well, he did.
He did.
Yeah, it's Colts. This is a byproduct of playing against the Colts.
Does that mean that you apply? I mean, do you sign Cooper Kupp?
He's okay in a PP.
John Brown or Cooper Kupp if you had to pick one to be on your roster starting in week 2?
Cooper Kupp because Carson Palmer is RIP. I mean, that is not a good situation in Arizona.
Well, we're going to have to talk more about that. Amari Cooper had a good game, and then Randall Cobb.
Amari Cooper should have had a monster game, and then he, in one drive, showed the world why Derek Carr is hesitant to target him inside the 5.
9 for 85 and 9 for 85 for Randall Cobb this week on 13 targets.
Is Randall Cobb back? Are you 1 week? Is Randall Cobb back?
I'm not ready to take. Here's what you don't do in week 1. You don't take victory laps because it's not last year. Remember Matt Forte? We were down on Matt Forte. Week 1, we looked like idiots.
Yeah,
and then it came back to the earth.
I was high on Golden Tate, low on Marvin Jones. I looked real dumb week 1 last year, but it was, it's one of those things where you're exactly
he looked
right.
back. He looked very back.
He looked back, but even still, I mean, I commented to Mike while we were watching the game. He was a centerpiece of that offense, but if you're not in a PPR league, it was worthless. I mean, he had 13 targets and still came away with, what would have been 8.5 points. No touchdowns, wasn't used much around the goal line. I mean, it's valuable. If you're in a PPR, it is good. I think that was like as good as a game could go for him. Like I don't expect
score. No, he'll get in. It's all about getting in the end zone with Aaron Rodgers. And you played Seattle and you put up 9 for 85. I think that's as good against Seattle maybe, but that's a 13-point game and a half-point lead.
I'm not saying that's as good as his fantasy week can go. I'm saying that's as good as the game script could have gone for his utilization.
Okay, I got you.
He was left, right, and center of that offense, which, hey, that's a good news, but it's just disappointing. And maybe that is just Seattle. The fact that every single screen was snuffed out quickly and those short passing routes –
and it could be Seattle that was forcing him to go to Cobb instead of more to Adams and more to Jordy.
All right, tight ends that stood out. It wasn't the big guys. It was Austin Hooper, Jesse James, Jason Witten, Charles Clay.
You have to watch the Austin Hooper touchdown. If you have not seen his 80-yard touchdown, you have.
I believe it was 88 yards.
Was it? Okay, I apologize, Mr. Hooper. 88. You have to go watch this. I mean, this giant man is lumbering down the field at probably running 8 miles an hour, and then just crushes the soul of a DB with a
tries to tackle him.
A stiff arm. He pushes him into the ground. it's an incredible play if you haven't seen it.
Charles Clay and Zach Ertz were 2 of our 3 starts of the week at the tight end position. Very happy to see them pan out. Do you buy into both going forward?
Zach Ertz, yes, because he'll get those targets. And Charles
8
Clay
for 93.
Charles Clay, I do buy into because
Who else are you going to throw the ball
have
to?
to throw the ball to him. I mean, like you said, he's not going to score 16 touchdowns, but he's going to be utilized in this offense. And I think Tyrod is a better quarterback than the Buffalo Bills want people to think he is, and he's a perfectly fine start. I mean, he takes on Carolina next week. We saw George Kittle have some success against them in week 1, so I'm fine rolling with Clay. Moving forward.
Big defensive weeks from the Rams.
Huge defensive
Jags,
weeks.
Ravens.
Four of the top 8 fantasy players, we'll call them, this week were team defenses. That's ridiculous.
That is. The Rams took care of Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, as they should have.
All right. We're going to talk pooped in their big boy pants, but first, Rising Stars.
Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week.
If this segment does anything, it tells you who we are buying into in week 1. These are each of our Raising Cane's Rising Stars. I'm going to kick it off with, I believe he might have been my Rising Star last week, Brooks.
It's very possible.
Yeah, I think so.
Ty Montgomery.
The star continues to ascend.
You play against a very solid defense in Seattle. You end up with 90+% of the snaps. He surpassed his career high in touches in week 1. Scored a touchdown, caught the ball 4 times. I'll be honest with you. I made trade offers this morning for Leonard Fournette, and I made them for Ty Montgomery because I think you saw everything you needed to see from a week 1 performance. He went off the field briefly with an injury, came back. Look, 90+% of snaps. Jamal Williams had two carries, I believe. So, Raising Cane's Rising Star for me, Ty Montgomery.
I could not agree anymore. He is a true workhorse back. He's the goal line back. He's the third down back. He's the first down back. And he's on the Green Bay Packers. What's not to love?
Yep.
I'm going to go very far away from all those great things I just said. My rising star is Buck Allen, Javorius Buck Allen.
Javorius.
Yeah, so Buck Allen shocked the world with 21 carries for 71 yards. I know that's not a great efficient stat line, but here's why I liked Buck Allen. With Danny Woodhead leaving the game, they need their pass-catching back role. Buck Allen has shown that before. He had that crazy game where he had like 12 receptions. He can play that role. Now this week you'll see he had 0 receptions, but if you look at the game and the game script, that was because Andy Dalton's 5 turnovers said that the Baltimore Ravens do not need to pass the ball anymore. Thus 21 carries for Buck Allen. With Danny Woodhead out, I expect Buck Allen to be super cheap or borderline free. I don't think the waiver's going to go crazy for him.
I think there'll be some heat.
Maybe some heat, but I'm going to try to get him cheap if I can. He's a startable asset for the next 4 or 5 weeks, so he's rising from the grave for me.
Nice. And Andy said no victory laps in week 1, but I'm going to take a small mini victory lap here.
Well, a small mini fits in with the player you're about to bring up.
Okay, because on the breakout show a couple weeks back, I threw out this player's name, and I got some funny looks from my compadres here. I said Tariq Cohen's going to be a breakout player this year. And boom, week 1, he's going to be the hottest waiver wire pickup because he was a beast. You don't think he'll be the #1 waiver priority?
Of course I do.
Oh,
I just didn't see the need to throw shade on your compadres because I don't. We were all.
Yeah,
Jordan Howard was the guy that I've said out of that top 12 was the one you have to worry about the most.
But Cohen, if you could go through the film of my brain and see the looks I was given on the show. Well, actually, we have footage, so we could probably do that. But Tariq Cohen, 42% of the snaps. Howard played 57, and Cohen went 8 for 47, a touchdown, 5 for 66 through the air. And you know what else he added into that stat line? A humongous Jordan Howard drop right at the end of the game.
Would have won the game.
They needed him.
If Tariq Cohen had been in on that play,
it's a touchdown.
I think the Bears win the game.
Now, here's what I will also say. This is why it's only a mini victory lap, because he's going to be the hot pickup this week. But he is Darren Sproles. He is the new version of Darren Sproles, which means he can have huge games like this. He can have multiple games, even string them together. Remember a couple years ago when Darren Sproles was this top 5 running back in Philadelphia, and it didn't make sense, and eventually the top 5 production, it fell off. But Cohen is a very good player. He's in a great situation because he is the pass catcher on a bad team. So game scripts should be in favor of Cohen getting at least these 42% of snaps, and he's going to be a great flex play.
It's a really tough situation for me to figure out. Like, I have David Johnson. I've got some Eddie Lacy problems, and I'm looking at Tariq Cohen, and I just don't think I want to spend the money, the fab dollars on Cohen, what it'll cost me. Although I buy into the game script situation and the big plays, I don't think I'm willing. But it's something that we'll talk about more on the waiver show tomorrow. So those were our Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week. Remember, game day tastes better with Raising Cane's chicken fingers, hand battered. That sweet tea, good stuff. Great for game day. And go ahead and check out raisingcanes.com.
Find your nearest location.
All right. Without further ado, a-doo-doo.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
I mean, let's be honest. This is the section of the show that everyone is looking forward to. Usually it's, I want to hear my guys who were studs. Like, let's just bask in their glory. Not this week.
There weren't enough studs, and there was one guy who pooped so hard that people everywhere started getting the sweats, and that is Andy Dalton. Oh!
Breaking news.
Andy Dalton's pants are destroyed.
Breaking news.
He did, it's – if you say, hey, Mike, can a quarterback possibly have negative points at the end of a game if they play the
at
whole
home?
Game? It's like, no. Oh, he did the impossible. I mean, 5 turnovers? Is that what he had?
Here's what we need to say about Andy Dalton.
Grief.
Because if there are 2 players that I think reflected poorly on the show, it would have been Andy Dalton and Carson Palmer this week. And Andy Dalton, I will apologize for Andy Dalton, even though Andy Dalton was our consensus QB 16 this week. And I will apologize because I am a big Andy Dalton fan, and I'm a big fan of this offense and the potential for Andy Dalton to be a valuable late-round quarterback. But I did not draft him to play this week, and I did not play him ahead of Carson Palmer or Marcus Mariota because of the matchup. But if you did, you ate it. You lost. You lost your week.
If you play Carson Palmer, who was, very bad in a standard league, you're talking about scoring 9 points. You're extremely disappointed with that. That's 14 points more than that's 14 points more.
Yeah,
than
you could have
Andy
survived
Dalton
with Carson Palmer.
Right, but Andy Dalton certainly screwed your team, and people want to know, okay, so is he dead? Is he gone? Was this just a catastrophe that will continue? I went back this morning, rewatched that game because I wanted to watch and get a fresh take knowing the end and say, okay, how this went. People aren't going to like hearing this, but I think Andy Dalton's going to be absolutely fine this year. He didn't look that atrocious. For the first 3 quarters, you had two of the first 3 interceptions were tip balls at the line, one of which went like 40 yards in the air. The other interception was this incredible, interception, fingertip grab, Odell Beckham catch from the defender. He was able to move the ball those first 3 quarters. Then obviously once the game is out of control, the wheels can really fall off. Now, I don't love him this coming week. Obviously, the Houston Texans are another difficult matchup.
He's at home.
Over the course of the season, I think Andy Dalton's going to be fine. He wasn't – Carson Palmer I'm more worried about. Carson Palmer looked horrific. He was missing guys open. He was making terrible mental decisions. I think Andy Dalton had some close calls and some bad breaks that just destroyed the team.
Carson Palmer did save you with a garbage time TD from absolute disaster, but it was not good. And now you have to ask the question. I have to ask the question. With Andrew Luck on the shelf, and the news came out that it might be until October, Palmer plays Indianapolis next week, and I think I'm going to start him. I think I'm going to play.
I think you probably should.
But here's the thing: if David Johnson's gone,
then
I'm not starting him
Yeah.
because they need him to be successful as an offense. Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Eli Manning, Carson Palmer, and Kirk Cousins combined for 2 total touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Nice.
The positive side is that there's a good chance if you played one of the guys that pooped in their big boy pants, so did your opponent.
That's exactly what happened with the tight ends. If I played Gronk against Reed, who cares?
So yeah, so what?
Russell Wilson was, I think, the most surprising situation. Does this mean that Green Bay's defense is legit? Because this is what you're going to see, right? Last year they were vulnerable. They were easily beat through the air. This week the pass rush was there, and Russell Wilson couldn't get anything done.
They had so many injuries early last season on their defense for the Green Bay Packers that I think I forgot how much that hurt their defense. Coming in, I said, must have been 5 or 6 times while watching this game, how impressed I was with the Green Bay Packers defense, their coverage, their pass rush, and I realized that some of that's on the Seahawks offensive line being so bad, but credit needs to be given to the Green Bay Packers defense, and I think this is an early indication of you can't just go by last year's numbers and say, oh, start your wide receivers, your quarterbacks against Green Bay, because it's not that same defense.
Well, and just do recall that, even last year in 2016 here, they had Russell Wilson's number last year. He came into Lambeau through 5 interceptions. So maybe this is that their defensive coaches just know how to play against Russell Wilson.
All right, Lev Bell, DeMarco Murray pooped in their big boy pants this week. Those are some big boy pants, so they're the headliners.
Le'Veon Bell had, I believe, around 16 total offensive yards at halftime. The Pittsburgh Steelers,
they couldn't get it going.
Yeah, I know Antonio Brown crushed, but I think the stat was they didn't have a first down in the first quarter. It was horrendous. The Steelers looked really, really bad.
Are you surprised about DeMarco Murray against Oakland not being able to get more going on the ground?
Yes, I was pretty surprised at that. And this wasn't Derrick Henry.
Only 18 carries. Only 18 carries from that offense. They really put it on Mariota.
Yeah.
Well, they lined up with 3 wide receivers a whole lot more than they did last year. So you're seeing a changing of the guard for shifting towards passing.
Let's talk about some of these platoons in the backfield. Forte and Powell both stunk, and Matt Forte outsnapped Powell, which makes it 10 of the last 13 games that Matt Forte has outsnapped Powell. So you might like Bilal Powell, but if he doesn't get to play, he will not perform for you.
That's a good point, Andy.
Thanks.
Good point.
Hot take. Are you targeting Powell after this pathetic situation? Oakland, Miami, Jacksonville coming up. Do you target him as a possible fill-in if you're facing, you're the Danny Woodhead owner, you're the David Johnson owner, you're facing maybe some tumult in your backfield. You had Lacey and you thought you had something and you don't.
Man, I don't think I do.
Okay.
Not at this point.
What about Mixon and Hill in that backfield in Cincinnati?
I hate Marvin Lewis. That's my takeaway.
He is who he is.
Yeah, I know it, and we knew it beforehand. We have said all offseason to worry about Joe Mixon because of Marvin Lewis and his history, but I just wanted to believe so bad that he would give it to the more talented back. Rewatching that game this morning, one thing was clear. This is Joe Mixon is their best back. When they had him in on that second drive, he single-handedly got them a first down. He was an outlet.
Gio looked great, though.
Gio did look very good.
Joe Mixon
Jeremy
will be
Hill,
fine.
not so much.
Joe Mixon will be fine. I'm not worried about Joe Mixon.
But it's just like give him
the question,
the whole workload. But it will not happen. It will not happen.
Win.
Never.
Never?
Injury.
Okay.
Injury is what's going to happen. So if Gio or
I think there are a lot of people who drafted Joe Mixon right now that are freaking out that you're saying that, though.
I drafted Joe Mixon. I'm freaking out that Marvin Lewis looked like a guy. Here's my only hope. Here's my only hope.
Went terrible for Cincinnati.
Everything went wrong, and so obviously they didn't have sustained offensive drives, which clearly would have helped Joe Mixon quite a bit.
Do you want to trade him?
No, because we're a keeper league, and I do think talent will win out in the long run. But it might be half the season that I've got to kind of withstand victories, if you will.
Nice.
The thing is first drive was all Hill, second drive was all Mixon, third drive was all Gio. It looked like this scripted situation where they wanted to see who had the hot hand, and it was just a dumb Marvin Lewis thing. I don't know that it's going to change. So I'm just worried about Marvin Lewis.
Amir Abdullah,
Yep.
Not good. 15 for 30. That's
No.
bad.
It
That's
was
bad.
It was really bad, but I mean, it's just like I thought was going to happen. The passing offense for Detroit was going to crush Arizona's secondary.
This is sarcasm?
Yes, very
Okay.
much. I mean, the exact opposite that should have happened given Arizona's defensive strengths. Exact opposite happened.
I never purchased the ticket to your
No.
Abdullah Express. I know, Andy, you hitched on, but I'm saying I've said this for a while. It's the exact same situation as the New York Giants to me. This is a team that doesn't run the ball with an offensive line that is not set to run the ball.
Fair.
And if you want the opportunity of a talented back in that situation, go ahead and take Abdullah, take Paul Perkins. I'm not.
I like the workload.
Yeah, I mean,
there was
he
no
got the
no
carries.
efficiency, and it was a problem. And if your strategy as Detroit is to be in a horrible deficit into the fourth quarter of every game, that doesn't lend itself to running the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he's still touched the ball 18 times. The upcoming schedule is not the best. Well, he has to go take on the Giants.
I'm going to withhold judgment
in a game against Minnesota. Yeah, I'm not bailing on the Express just yet, but it could be rough here to start.
Robert Kelly, 10 for 30. Samaje Perine did not play an offensive snap in this game. Is now the time to target somebody like Perine because if they're
The guy who didn't play a snap?
Yes, absolutely. A high draft investment pick, and Robert Kelly was terrible. That's the time to target somebody,
Right.
is it not?
Maybe.
Are they? Tell me this: isn't Perine going to have another week of no offensive snaps next week?
Probably. I mean, probably.
I'd
not.
say that's almost a 0%
I'd say
chance.
it probably not, but it. Oh, so yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah,
because this is the coach is who he is. He wants a reliable running back who won't lose yards and who won't fumble the ball. And
but last year he did not get efficiency from Matt Jones, and you had the fumbles, and he quickly made a change to Robert Kelly, an unheard name.
Yeah, it was because of the fumbles.
Yeah,
and efficiency.
No, Matt
It
Jones
was just fumbles.
Yeah, it was just fumbles. Matt Jones was
right.
racking up yards.
Paul Perkins was terrible.
Yeah.
Eddie Lacy looked like
Eddie
Mike
Lacy
Tolbert.
You
was
can
not
cut
a running
Lacy.
back. Yeah,
you can cut him.
Ugh.
I have drafted him in a few spots, just holding out hope. You can cut him. It's gross, but it's in Seattle. It's Thomas Rawls or bust. Either Thomas Rawls comes in and he's good.
You don't think Chris Carson has a shot to take over?
I don't think he has a shot to take over. No, it's a platoon or it's Thomas Rawls, in my opinion.
All right, I want to know real quick, any of these four poopers are you buying this week? Duke Johnson, Frank Gore, Tevin Coleman, Isaiah Crowell. I like the commitment to the run in Cleveland.
Yeah, maybe Crowell.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right, we need to move to the wide receivers. There were a number of wide receivers that really disappointed you. Dez Bryant, Jamison Crowder, Brandon Marshall. Jason tweeted, if you're looking for Brandon Marshall, you can find him in 2015. T.Y. Hilton.
That was a great tweet.
Kelvin Benjamin, Dante Moncrief, Devontae Adams, Martavis Bryant, Eric Decker, and Alshon Jeffrey. I think some of the concern there, obviously Hilton and Moncrief, if you're going to be stuck with Tolzien or Brissett over the next 4 weeks, there's some concern there long term.
Jacoby Brissett is 10 times better than Scott Tolzien, though. At least he'll take a shot down the field. He can, use his legs to buy a little bit more time since the offensive line isn't that great. I mean, you saw Dante Moncrief. I mean, he had a target that was only catchable by the defender with Scott Tolzien, and then Jacoby Brissett comes in and throws a 50-yard bomb to him. So it's good news. To me, T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief, they're going to be hard to trust, but at least it's a little –
There's some hope.
A little bit better with Jacoby Brissett there.
What do you think of the 3 total catches between Kelvin Benjamin and Greg Olsen?
Cam looked bad. His fantasy day was okay because he threw 2 touchdowns. Technically, the screen pass to Jonathan Stewart that he –
that was a great play call. That was an amazing call.
And Jonathan Stewart looked great, but I'm just saying that that wasn't anything to do with Cam Newton. But
only 171 yards passing.
He looked bad, man. He was missing guys.
6
left,
rushing
right,
attempts for 3 total yards.
He got a goal line play call bootleg, where he rolls out to score the touchdown, and he always hits that.
And Dixon,
and he was not even close.
Was wide open in the end zone, and he overthrew him. Now it's interesting. McCaffrey outsnapped Stewart. Stewart outtouched McCaffrey, and So at least McCaffrey's on the field.
Now,
what's your temperature gauge here on McCaffrey? Were you pleased?
Yes,
with what happened?
Yeah, I was very, very pleased. And when you talk about how Stewart out-touched McCaffrey, that's a little bit nonsense, because through the first 3 quarters when it mattered, I mean, it wasn't close. McCaffrey was out-touching Stewart by a wide margin. It was only once it was like 20-0 and they're trying to run out the clock that, of course, Stewart would take over. He's getting all the touches at that point. But when the game was going and was competitive, and when you're looking at future games that aren't just starting 20-0 in favor of the Panthers, I think you actually saw that McCaffrey is the more utilized. He will get more touches than Jonathan Stewart.
And they showed the commitment to changing the script. I mean, the draft Twitter, right? When we all lost it, like, the Panthers, it's not a fit because they don't throw the running back. Well, they were checking down to McCaffrey.
That's good. My only concern is how does that affect the default throw for Cam Newton? Does Greg Olsen lose targets because McCaffrey is underneath and available? I have some concern about that. Greg Olsen is obviously good, and this was not a really efficient passing game in general for Cam Newton, although he salvaged the fantasy day.
And which want to throw out there, I mean, despite me always piling on to Cam Newton throwing ability, he's still recovering from the shoulder, and you could tell. Because, I mean, this was missing Ed Dixon in the end zone. That's an unforgivable throw, but I blame that on him still recovering and getting back in
Are you
form.
sounding the alarm on any of these 3 players that you're fans of, Mike? Eric Decker, Martavis Bryant, and Devontae Adams?
No, actually, I'm not.
None of them?
No. Eric Decker was getting the targets. He had an end zone fade that the defender managed to get a hand on barely. Adams, I think this was just a product of the matchup. And Martavis is the weird one because the Steelers were just so bad. And it was I felt like Martavis Bryant and Le'Veon Bell coming back can help the Steelers be a better offensive team on the road. But I think that Le'Veon Bell was just so bad in this game that it blew everything up.
If you need to take a breath, and we talked about this before the season began, if you go and pull up Antonio Brown or Julio Jones or Odell Beckham Jr. and you look at last year's game logs, you're going to see games that look like a lot of these poop in their big boy pants.
Of course.
Players. But when it happens week 1, the temptation is to overreact. It's to slap the Xanax out of your doctor's hands and just freak out.
A lot of Xanax talk today.
Well, this
episode is brought to you by
I'm just staying with the metaphor here of, look, take a breath, take a chill pill.
Yeah, there you go.
And don't read too far into some of these situations. There are some concerning ones. But, again, we'll talk more at length tomorrow in the waiver section. Not a great game from, obviously, Russell Wilson or Doug Baldwin. As Wilson goes, so does Baldwin. And then you have all the big-time tight ends. Let me just ask this question before we close the show out. Are there any of those top 6 tight ends I mentioned, Gronk, Eifert, Reed, Kelsey Olsen, that you are, Graham, that you're actually worried about, that you don't want to buy into?
Yeah, for me, it would be Jordan Reed. It's because of the toe, not because of what happened on the field. I have said for the last month or so, he was pretty much taken off my board. I just don't believe that he's going to be healthy enough to be the great Jordan Reed that we've seen.
And, the offense, Terrell Pryor was the target leader. I mean, it felt like the offense was running through Pryor because they actually have a big athletic target. And so maybe that changes things up for Jordan Reed.
All right. Like I said, we're here 5 days a week. We're going to get into waivers tomorrow. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to get you ready for week 2. We're going to bring some sanity to the world. We'll talk about the 2 Monday night games that are taking place. We'll reflect on what happened there. The Saints are taking on Minnesota, and the Los Angeles Chargers are taking on the Denver Broncos tonight in the doubleheader.
Son of bum.
Yes.
Son of bum.
Oh,
my gosh.
Bum.
You'd be surprised how many Bum Phillips books exist in the world. I looked.
You would.
That's true. The other day I was just in the office, right? And we're back there. We're doing research. We're working on our rankings for week 1. And I glance over at Jason's computer, and he's just fiddling through Wade Phillips' Twitter account.
Of course he is.
Just in the middle of the day.
Well, when in Rome.
What on earth are you saying? Kareem. All right, look, hey, before we close it out, I want to thank NFL Game Pass for sponsoring the show today. As I said, look, whatever your favorite game is, NFL Game Pass has got it. If you are worried about one of your players, you want to flip on NFL Game Pass and check it out. You get the condensed games. You get the all-22 coaches film.
That's what I used to rewatch the Bengals game this morning.
Absolutely. And that, yeah, you see the tip passes. You see whether you can freak out or not. Look, if it's on the NFL, and it happened, NFL Game Pass has it. Sign up right now at NFL.com/fantasyfootballers. That's NFL.com/fantasyfootballers. Mike, any parting words as we head into the Monday night games?
I have a message for Michael Thomas.
Okay.
You have to outscore Melvin Gordon by 8 points.
You don't want to eat crap this week.
I don't want to eat any more eggplants.
Yeah. Be sure to check out playdraft.com/ballers. And get involved in some sweet draft DFS play. Very fun week on draft. And we'll catch you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.